Good evening, everyone. I am Swardha Kulkarni, and I'm thrilled to be your host for this exciting evening. Joining me is Swati, our co host. We are delighted to welcome each and every one of you to our special webinar, Mastering Australian Student Visa, brought to you by FES. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Let me start with a brief introduction to FES. At FES, we provide premier student abroad education services tailored to both students and working professionals who aspire to pursue higher education overseas. With offices strategically located at major cities across India, including Kochi, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Pune, Mumbai, and Kolkata. We are committed to helping you achieve your dreams of studying abroad. Our extensive network and deep expertise are focused on equipping you with the tools you need to navigate the ever evolving landscape of international education. Whether you are dealing with the complexities of applications or the challenges of adapting to the new culture, we are here to support you every step of the way. Tonight's session, Mastering Australian Student Visa, is designed to offer you comprehensive insights into studying in Australia. We will explore opportunities, unique cultural experiences, and practical tips to make your journey smoother and more enriching. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Pooja Jaiswal, our esteemed guest speaker for this session. Pooja serves as an Australian destination specialist at FES, bringing with her invaluable experience in Australian designations. Throughout her career, she has garnered extensive knowledge and expertise in the realm of studying in Australia. Today, Pooja will provide us with comprehensive insights into the genuine temporary intern and genuine student requirements and offer practical advice to enhance our journey. We hope you find this session incredibly informative and inspiring. For ongoing updates and personalized support, be sure to connect with us on our social media handles. Please note that we have a dedicated question and answer session towards the end of the webinar. If you have any questions or inquiries during the session, feel free to send them via the Q&A option. Now, let's dive in and explore the incredible opportunities that Australia has to offer. Once again, thank you for joining us and we hope you enjoy this session. Now, let me welcome Pooja. I will hand it over to her to start the session. Pooja, over to you.
Thank you so much, Swarada. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining in today's session. I will be covering and mastering Australian student visas, which will talk about genuine temporary entrant and genuine student requirement. The below topics will be discussed in detail, starting from Australian qualification framework, understanding genuine temporary entrant requirement, exploring genuine student requirement, key differences between both GTE and GS, challenges and pitfalls, case studies and examples, Q&A sessions, and to refer to them, we will also be sharing the resources and assistance towards the end. Before we begin with the main discussion about GTE and GS, it is very important for a student to understand the Australian qualification framework, which is the national policy for regulated qualifications in Australian education and training. It incorporates the qualifications from each education and training sector into a single comprehensive national qualifications framework. So, how do we understand this? If a student wishes to know which level of qualification is apt for him, he should be understanding the below levels of qualification, which starts with foundation program, which is a preparatory program for the main course. It's the duration can range between 1 year or more. Vocational education training, 1 to 4 years, which is more of a practical based kind of a learning. Undergraduate degree, 3 to 5 years, which will include different disciplines starting from arts, business, engineering, IT, and also with combined and dual degrees. Postgraduate discipline, which can range between 1 to 2 years. Doctoral or a PhD, 3 to 4 years. So for students who would like to understand in detail about each level of qualification, they can refer to www.aqf.ed, which will help them understand the right match based on their highest level of qualification, what they have completed previously. So, the topic with genuine temporary entrant requirement, which is an important condition for a student to qualify to move on with this offer letter. The objective of GTE assessment is to filter genuine students from the non genuine ones. How do a university or an agent or a high commission does this? They do this in three levels. At the
Pooja,
application stage,
your
Pooja,
slide is stuck.
yeah.
Okay, now it's okay.
thank you, Swarada. So the GT assessment level can be assessed in three levels, that is through agents, universities, Australia High Commission at application, offer, and visa stage. Students should be aware of the content in the SOP and their answers in the interview should be in accordance to get the GT approval. This is simply to ensure that this information which is mentioned in the statement of purpose is written by the student. Now coming to the recent change where the GTE is replaced by the genuine student requirement, the government has replaced this requirement for student visas
Pooja, I'm
effective.
sorry to interrupt. Your screen is stuck. Yeah, it's working now. It's good now.
Thank you. So this is effective for student visa applications lodged on or after 23rd March 2024. This requirement does not apply for student visa applications lodged before 23rd March. They will continue to assess these applications against the GT requirement. All applicants for a student visa must be genuine applicant for entry. They must stay as a student and be able to show an understanding that studying in Australia is the primary reason for their student visa. This was the earlier condition. Now, with the current changes, the GS requirement is intended to include students who, after studying in Australia, develop skills in Australia which they need, and then they can go on to apply for a permanent residence. To be granted a student visa, all applicants must demonstrate they satisfy the genuine student criteria, and if they are applying with their dependents, also the dependent criteria. Now, how does a High Commission understand that the student has met the GS criteria? To do so, in the online application form, in the student visa application form, the applicant will be asked below questions where it will be more of an evidence-based kind of an answer than like an SOP, which used to be in a GTE. So
Sorry to
the
interrupt again. Your slide is stuck. Okay, now working.
So with the genuine student criteria in the student application form, below details will be covered. The details will include applicants' current circumstances. This includes ties to family, community, employment, and economic circumstances. The student should be very keen and also understanding about the course what he is applying in Australia and also about the university or the education provider. This must also explain their understanding of the requirements of the intended program and studying and living in Australia, and explain how completing this course will be of benefit to this applicant. So this point becomes very important because generally we see students when they are choosing a program, they need to be mindful about if that is relevant to their previous background. Give details of any other relevant information the applicant would like to include. That can be anything with their education gap, or if there is a change of stream, or any other relevant information which the university should know about their application. In the GS requirement, answers must be written in English with a maximum of 150 words per question. There is an additional question for those applicants who have previously held a student visa or those who are lodging an application in Australia for a non student visa currently. Although we see some changes which might be applicable from 1st July onwards. But for students currently who are in Australia, they should understand that they must include their responses in the application form. The applicant must attach supporting documents to their ME account. Generic statements unsupported by evidence are not given significant weight in the GS assessment. This means it's important to provide evidence to support a claim made by the applicant. So, a High Commission or the visa officer who's going to make a decision about the student's visa application, they will look into the overall personal circumstances when they assess if the student is a genuine student. How can a student prepare his documents, or how can he show evidence and information that should include in the GS? These are the below details, which will include academic transcripts showing qualifications achieved, name of the education provider or multiple providers in case of the student has completed his education from different
Your
universities.
screen is stuck again. Yeah, it's fine.
It was fine now.
Yes.
Thank you, Swati. So again, I would just want to repeat this, as this is important evidence what students would have to include while talking about the GS. So academic transcripts, name of the education provider or multiple providers in case if they have studied in different universities, length of study, and certificates of attainment can include provisional degree certificates. And in case if a student has any previous history of study in Australia, it should also include details about that. Reasons for change of course or education providers, details of information on course progress, and if there are any study gaps, and any other information the applicant considers relevant to their study record in Australia. Now, with the GS requirements, and we have discussed about the education qualification and the documents. Now, coming to the work requirements, a student who is currently a working professional, or if he has or had any previous work experiences, it's very important for them to know that the details of their current employer and company address will be requested in the application. So they should have that ready. Period of employment, details of position held, the name and contact details of someone who can confirm the circumstances of the declared employment. This becomes very important for the verification purpose. So the student should ensure that the details what he is giving is correct and the supporting evidences matches to the requirements which he is giving in the student application. Circumstances in their home country or country of residence. This includes the nature of the applicant's personal ties, which can be family, community, and employment. They will need to provide reasons for also not studying in their home country if a similar course is available. So, this is a common point where students find it difficult to give a claim on why they wish to study this program if there is a similar course available in their home country. So the research should be much in detail. It can be connected to something with theory or practical or credit points or assessment levels. So there has to be fair reasoning on the choice of program, and also to confirm why the student is not deciding to study in their home country if a similar course is available. Now, economic circumstances in home country or country of residence, this includes a lot of information about the source of income and evidence of funds. So this can vary depending on the nature of the income. So documents showing employment or business activities for 12 months before lodging an application. This can be applicable accordingly for a salaried person as well. Potential employment offers including salary and other benefits after course completion. This can be about the student who is working, his payslips, bank statements, work appointment letters, relieving letters, and also includes sponsors documents, which can be parents and blood relatives, income tax returns or bank statements. So this will show that the students, if a student is running a business or the parents are doing a business income, this will show the evidence that the source of income is coming in from the business. And to validate that, there can be different points of checks through bank statements. If there is a political and civil unrest and military service commitments in the applicant's home country, that would present as a significant incentive for them to leave their home country, they must provide the reasons and supporting evidence. Now, for students to understand it better, that what can be the key difference between GTE and GS, because majority of the questions might seem that they are the same, but simply what they can remember is, as the name says, genuine temporary entrant is more towards students confirming that they are entering into Australia as a genuine student and would like to stay there temporarily and will come back to the home country. But now the name is genuine student, so the student can complete the studies and further stay in Australia to develop their skills and then further on apply for a permanent residence. So the key difference between GTE and GS is this. But how do a student or a student and or a dependent can confirm the situation will be to assess considering these factors below. It can be circumstances, immigration history, which we had not covered earlier, that can be travel and visa history earlier, compliance with visa conditions and any other relevant matter. So all the details given must be true, and students who are submitting the supporting documents, they need to cross verify if the details are correct. This criteria acknowledges that post study pathways are available for those who are eligible, which was not there in the GTE. So the GS requirement gives a flexibility for students to also look into the post study pathways. Situations in their home country, where it can be an economic situation or a personal situation, reason for studying in their home country or region if a similar course is available there, the nature of applicants' personal ties to their home country. This is more towards the student's family history, the number of people living in the family, or if there is a working professional who is deciding to leave the job at the time of student visa application, to also declare the supporting evidences for the same. Now, coming to economic circumstances, this includes the sponsor's economic circumstances, the declaration through their income documents, and evidence of funds can be in the form of savings, fixed deposits, and education loan, for which supporting documents should be submitted. Now, with the GS criteria, we had covered the points which will be asked as an evidence-based questions. But for students to understand how should they answer those points, these key points will be really helpful. So the level of knowledge of the proposed course and education provider and of living in Australia becomes very...
Slide is stuck. Okay.
Thank you. Previous study and qualifications. So this has to start right from the school. So if a student is going in for an undergraduate degree and has completed 10th and 12th or a diploma, the student will have to include all the qualifications with the supporting mark sheets and certificates. Level of research the applicant has undertaken into the proposed course of study and living arrangements, value of the course to their future. So just selecting the course is not important. They will have to do an in-depth research on how this course will help them in future to develop their skills when they stay in Australia. If this course is consistent with their current level of education, and if the course will assist them to obtain employment or improve employment prospect in their home country or another country, the evidences should be mentioned clearly. For example, if the student has already been working in a company and has been drawing a salary of this much, he will have to be convincing and giving in answers which will be higher than what he was doing earlier. If the course is relevant to past or proposed future employment in their home country or another country, expected salary and other benefits in their home country or another country obtained with the applicant's qualification from the proposed course of study. Now, coming in with the immigration history, I would like to take some extra time in understanding and also informing students that visa and travel history for Australia and other countries, although that might not be a mandatory question asked at the application level or maybe at the offer level, or even at the student visa level, but it's important for students to understand that this information is very essential, and they would have to record the dates and also the purpose of travel, if it's a tour, it's for the purpose of tourist or work or any other reasons. If the students have previously applied for visa earlier and have received any rejections, the information with the country details and the supporting documents would be required. So the details at the time of application should be informed to the students so that they are aware and they prepare these documents, visa, and keep them ready at the application stage. Now, when we are talking about the GTE and GS comparisons, although students at the initial stage of their application might not have all the documents ready, but as they move on to a conditional offer and they start collating the other documents as and when they are ready, it's important for them to keep in mind that these are the details which will be assessed when the High Commission or the visa officer is planning to give in the visa decision. So the details right from the academics, which are the mandatory documents, it can be right from his school 10th, 12th, individual semester mark sheets, which will talk about the history of arrears, backlogs, and if a student is having any study gaps, it's important for him to also validate and also give in supporting evidences. For example, if a student has done any entrance exams or has done any certification or has been preparing for any examination, so supporting evidences will be required. So gaps, if it goes more than 6 months to 1 year, the reasons should be mentioned along with supporting evidences. So these are with the academic reasons. But then coming into the work reasons, all the supporting evidences right from the current offer letter, previous relieving letters, resignation confirmation in case if a student is yet to get his relieving letter. And to validate this, there can be checks at different levels. So students should be aware that he or she will have to have his pay slips, bank statements, employer name, contact number, email ID, address, all these details will be asked. So they should be aware to keep them ready. And along with covering these academic work references and economic details, that is with the sponsors and evidence of funds, visa refusals or cancellations can be missed. So it's important that they remember this, or if they are unsure about it, to check this in the family. Any kind of visa refusals or cancellation should be declared so that there is an informed decision which is made and the supporting evidences should be submitted. If the applicant is a minor, we can consider the intentions of the parent, legal guardian, or spouse. So there is a separate category in the application when the student is declaring his personal details along with his email ID and date of birth. So if the university sees that the student is or the applicant is a minor, they have a separate form which is called as an under 18 form. It's a guardian arrangement form. So that to ensure that the student is supported by a guardian, universities can help them with a form where they can appoint a local guardian from their end. Alternatively, if a student is having a blood relative there, he will have to give in all the details in the under 18 form, and the same will be submitted along with the supporting documents. So these are the tips and tricks where the students can go through the details when they are preparing their documents for Australia's application moving on to offer. And whenever there are various conditions asked at different stages, that can be at the application stage or the offer stage or the visa stage, it's important that the information which they submit is genuine and the same can be supported through evidences. If the student is unsure about it, they can always buy time and validate those details and submit the documents accordingly. At any point of time, if students would like to go through details more about studying in Australia or living in Australia, any recent changes happening in there with course choices, university choices, there are reference links which will really help them with that. Resources are mentioned below. And also to understand that it's CRICOS registered, that that the course is registered for the student or the international applicant to qualify. The CRICOS education government website really helped them to do that. And coming into Australia student visa, as there are rules and regulations which can get updated at any point of time, it's always important that the students verify the most recent information when they are applying for their student visa, and the whole list of documents, which will include all the requirements to qualify for a genuine student requirement. Moving on to the documentation which might be required to support their intentions to study in Australia through a question and answer format, which can be in the form of evidence based questions, where the word limit can be around 150 words. Earlier, it used to be a statement of purpose of 300 words. So students can remember all these points when they are talking about the answers in the questions. And while collating the documents, just declaring the answers in the questions will not suffice. So they will have to ensure that the answers, what they are giving in the questions, will have to have a supporting evidence of documents. And if it's not available, they can get that done from the relevant bodies. If it is connected to academics, they can reach their college or university or school to get the documents. And if it's connected to work documents, they'll have to be reaching their workplace. And if it's and there is more weightage given in for financial situations, so it's important that student understands and plan their evidence of funds accordingly. Usually when there is a student applying in for an application, it can vary from stage to stage, because there are different intakes available in Australia, starting from February intake, July, and then moving on to the November intake. So the two major intakes are February and July. But now that we see a lot of responses for a lot of popular programs, many popular programs also run in the November intake in universities. So students who are recently graduating or completing their year 12, and if they feel,
I guess you are on immigration history slide only.
yeah, it's the same slide.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Varda. So they will have to be, keeping in all these documents ready when they are referring to the 500 student visa requirement. So just to give a nutshell about whatever we had discussed before we move on to the Q&A session, for students who are looking in to apply to the next intake, they should be aware of the list of documents which is required, and also to plan in advance that it might take 4 to 8 weeks time for the students to qualify for an offer letter. So if the student is planning to apply for the immediate next intake, and if they have all the documents ready, including their English language requirement, it's always a good practice and a tip to also have the income and evidence of funds in place. Now that we had covered all the documents required connected to financial requirement, so students can have a tap of that as well. So as the session says, I have covered in genuine temporary entrant requirement and how this is replaced to genuine student requirement. Swarada, so if we have any questions coming in, we can take them now.
Thank you, Pooja, for this insightful presentation. We have received few questions and we encourage you to continue dropping more questions. Let's address some questions now.
Sure.
Okay, the first question is, what is genuine student requirement?
All right. So now with the genuine student requirement, this can be a little confusing for students who might be applying for the first time, because when they get a conditional offer letter, there are different conditions which mentions along with academic and English language requirement. So genuine student requirement, all they can remember is simply a condition where the student will have to fulfill, where the university or the High Commission will take him as a genuine student which doesn't require him to declare that he will return to his home country, but develop skills after he completes his course and then go on to apply for a permanent residence. So this is a genuine student requirement, and the difference, already we had spoken about it, but for students to remember the term, the genuine student requirement can be seen in the offer letter as a GS criteria.
Thank you, Pooja. Next question is, what is the purpose of GS requirement?
All right. So now, when we are looking into the complete life cycle of the application for a student, student might be applying with minimum documents. So when a university assesses the application, they come in with various conditions. So, what is the objective of having the GS requirement? It is simply to know that students' primary motive is to study. So that is why this term is genuine student, and the objective is to understand that the student is entering into Australia, where his primary objective is studies, wherein he will complete the education and develop skills which can be in demand in Australia. And the objective is to, for the student to focus on studies and then develop skills and then move on applying for a PR.
Okay. What are the changes in Australian student visa application?
Thank you, Swarada. So we are seeing a lot of changes which are getting implemented. So to start off with the GT to GS, where the primary motive remains the same, but there is a flexibility given now to students, where they earlier they used to declare that they would genuinely want to study but temporarily stay in Australia and will have to return to home country. But now in the GS requirement, the university is also looking into the various documents, but students, while answering this question, they can remember that when they are talking about or when they are addressing the facts about the choice of program or the choice of university and how is it different from in India, they will have to convince that this course will help them to develop their skills, which is in high demand in Australia, which will later help them to apply to stay there further. So this is the major change which we see in the student visa application for Australia. Other than that, there are few other changes connected to student visas. That can be the minimum entry requirement, that is with the English language requirements. Earlier, we had seen where there were different levels of qualifications where students were required to complete their IELTS or TOEFL or PTE. So we are seeing few changes coming in there as well with the required score. And the primary, or I would say the immediate change which is coming between GT and GS are with the visa changes is with GT to GS. And other than that, the academic and the English language requirement, there are few details which was already shared, which we can take in detail in case if we have any specific questions connected to that.
Great, Pooja. So can you please brief on the questions? What kind of questions will be asked for a GS requirement?
Sure, Swati. So, as we covered that the GS requirement can be asked at different stages. So, a student should be prepared even before applying, where if he is going through an agent, the checks will be made on why is he choosing this program, why this university, how is this course going to benefit him in future, and if he is choosing a university in Australia, what is different there? If there is a similar program available in his home country in a different university, what are the convincing answers he needs to give while including that in the GS answers. And also, if that's going to be a working professional specifically, he will also have to be talking about the skills which he is going to gain if he is leaving his current job and going there to work, and how this course will help him to improve his skills. And if he is declaring that he would like to implement those skills in the later perspective while applying for a PR, the answers should include that as well. And any other relevant information which can be other than academic, English, or financial situation, which is very important for the application, should be mentioned. So these are the few questions. But again, Swati, as this is very specific to a student's profile, so depending on the highest level of qualification what the student is from, and the level of qualification what he is applying to, there can be more questions asked at different stages. But these are the basic questions which will be covered in the application stage. But if at the offer stage, if a university feels that the university would like to look into the students' communication skills and reasoning skills, they can also schedule an interview where they would do a video interview to see if the student is really aware and has done enough research while he is giving these answers in the GS questions. So this can be while releasing the unconditional offer letter, when the conditional offer is given in. So that is at the second stage. At the third stage, it's much more elaborate, where in the visa, we will be discussing everything. The student will start right from his academic details to his English language details. And if there is any study gaps or any education gaps or any work gaps, he needs to address that as well. And economic, personal, and financial ties should also be mentioned. So students should be mindful about the word count when he's answering this. I'm sure there will be instructions given in the form when he is addressing these questions. And also the relevant answers should have evidences to support his statement. So these will be the questions which will be asked primarily. But in case if there is going to be very specific questions, that will be more towards the profile connected to the student.
All right, Pooja. So basically, student has to convey that he has to prove that he's a potential student, a genuine student, and he has to show the ties to his home country.
Correct. So ties, I would say that's very interesting with the current GS announcement, because earlier there were compelling reasons or incentives for students to come back to India was a primary objective when they were gauging students on GT. But now with GS, Australia is acknowledging the fact that the students are going in for studies, but they also understand that that will develop their skills. So which is why the student should be very mindful when he's choosing a program, that should not be repeating the same course what he has finished. So that's when he can convince that this course is going to help me with developing more skills. And further down, once I have done that and I have successfully completed my program in the stipulated time and credits required for the course completion, I can then stay in the country and apply for a PR later. So, I would say that students can use this opportunity, but they need to be mindful when they are giving in answers, as it should be everything, all the details what they are giving in, that has to be supported by an evidence of a document.
Great. All right, Pooja. So we have another question. So what are the new Australian English language proficiency levels?
Sure. So the approved English language proficiency levels was IELTS, TOEFL, and PTE, but we had seen a change last year, that was in July 2023, up till 5th May of 2024, where TOEFL was not accepted. But it's an exciting information now that students can apply with TOEFL scores on and after this month, that is, that is from 5th May onwards. So 5th May and after 5th May, TOEFL scores taken are acceptable. So it's just that they need to be very clear that it should be a proper test and not a home-based test. So IELTS, TOEFL, and PTE, all three English language proficiency is acceptable now for Australia application.
All right, Pooja. So when you say TOEFL is accepted, is it just for the application process, or is it required for the student to take a PT on the visa level?
So now, see, as I said, it depends on when the student has completed. So say if a student has completed in the period when TOEFL was not accepted, because usually it's valid for 2 years, right? So if he has taken it in between last, say, July to this May, then he will have to definitely do either an IELTS or a PT, or he can take a recent test again. But as the dates are announced by the High Commission and TOEFL is accepted now, all the student can remember is when he is submitting his documents, the date of test he needs to check. If he has taken it on and after 5th May of this year, that should be okay. If not, then the university will ask him to retake or submit a new score.
All right, Pooja, got it. So we have another question. Who can fund my education? Who all can fund my education?
Great. That's a very interesting question, because I see students who also are aware that these are the requirements, but when they come into the offer stage, there are a lot of questions what a student might have. I would like to take an extra minute to take this question. Now, coming to who can fund my education, the acceptable sponsors will have to be blood relatives. So, a student who is a minor will have to anyways declare his parents' complete income. But if that doesn't meet the minimum requirement of income, like a source of income on an annual basis, he can bring in his blood relatives as well. So, if it is only to understand who can be the sponsor, it is parents, grandparents, paternal and maternal uncle and aunt. But again, according to the situation, or according to the overall profile of the student, the percentage of income what we are declaring can vary. So the sponsor can be blood relatives, but the percentage of income what they are declaring, we need to look into the complete history of that. So in this case, students, friends, neighbors, or anything to do with other than blood relatives cannot sponsor. So they should be educated at the time of application itself. If they are going to prepare their funds or plan their education loan, they need to be sure that their sponsors have to be a blood relative, primarily parents. If we see a situation where the parents' income is not supported by evidences, where they do not have the documents like ITRs or bank statements, or if there is a home run business, then they can bring in their blood relatives, which can be grandparents and siblings and maternal and paternal uncle and aunt. But it definitely has to be a blood relative.
Great, Pooja. Thanks. We have couple more questions to answer. How much funds do I need to show for visa?
All right. So this is a very common question which all the students will have, and it requires a lot of time to arrange the documents. So all they can remember is the calculation goes like they have to include the tuition fees, annual tuition fees, which is mentioned in their offer letter. Every offer letter, irrespective of the level what the student is applying for, will have the tuition fee mentioned annually. So they'll have to include the annual tuition fees annual living expenses, there is a hike in living expenses from the previous. So now the living expenses has gone high to $29,710. So student will have to include the 12 months living expenses along with the travel expenses, that will be around $2,000. So this again is the bare minimum requirement when the student is planning for their education. This is for the visa purpose. Say, for example, a student is going for an undergraduate level where the duration of the program can vary between 3 to 4 years. So, how much funds should they have is more towards answering what is the requirement for the university and the High Commission to show that. So, the answer will be 1 year's tuition fee, living expenses, and airfare. But it is always a good practice to also remember that the student will have to complete his other years of education as well. So, which is why the universities are doing a check by checking this through movable and immovable assets. So, 1 year's expenses is minimum requirement, but projection for the other years also becomes very important, which students are missing while planning their education. So, as I had said that the living expenses, travel cost will remain the same. But if a student is going to main cities like, say, for example, Melbourne, Sydney, or Brisbane, he will have to be understanding that the main city living expenses are going to be a bit higher side, and they cannot be relying on a part-time job to cover these expenses. So they will have to plan it accordingly, and also declare this in the form of a chartered accountant statement, which can talk about the movable and immovable assets what the family is having. In case if a student is going for an education loan, then if it's going to be a collateral loan, then what can be the immovable asset value? So that needs to be declared, which students are majorly missing in. So the minimum requirements, I see that students are able to understand and they are able to arrange them. But what they also have to be understanding is the projection for the other years should be planned in such a way where the documents are also provided and the declaration is given in the GS.
All right, Pooja, great. So our next question is, which is our next available intake for the students to move the application?
Sure. So now we are in June, although it's a bit late for July, but there are universities who are having their deadlines open even till the last moment. That can be end of June. It's just that the student will have to be, deciding if the documents are all ready. So the next available intake is July 2024. But if the student is in his final year or in year 12 and is having a lot of pending documents which will require him more time to prepare, he can look into the November 2024 intake as well, rather not waiting for another 6 months to apply for February 2025. So the three intakes will be February, July, and November. And for popular programs, we see majority of the universities offering these programs also in November intake. They call it as trimester 3, or some universities they also run the programs in October. So we students can try and for the same year, that can be October, November of 2024. And for students who would require more time to arrange for their financials and other commitments, then they can look in for February 2025 intake.
All right, Pooja. We have one last question. So, how long does it take for a passport to be stamped?
Great, that is a tricky question. So I think I had not covered that, but thanks for that question, Swati. So for Australian student visa, it's an e-visa. So there is no stamping on the passport. So students who are applying for a student visa with subclass 500, they will be submitting all their documents with the GS answers. And once the visa grant is available, it's going to be an electronic visa, and there will not be any stamping which will be required, unlike other countries. So that will be the visa grant copy which they can carry when they are traveling to Australia. So there is no stamping on the passport required for Australia student visa.
Great, Pooja. We are done with the questions for today. So thank you so much for patiently answering all the questions in detail. Would you like
No
to
problem.
give some comments for the upcoming students, or do you have any insights for the students to take care of when they move the application?
Sure, definitely. I would first of all would like to wish them all the best for students who are still looking at considering Australia as their study destination. And the tips what I can share with them will be more towards planning their documentations well, spending extra time in collating all the documents, preparing a detailed research. I would say they can spend extra time in doing a research on why they are choosing this program, not just going by the name, but also understanding the course modules, specializations, credit points which are involved in there. Interestingly, Australia has very flexible course modules, so they will have to look into the course units in detail, for which the resources we had already shared, where they can look in for the course modules and then make an informed decision on why they should choose this program, which is the most important information when they are planning for the Australia application. And 6 months prior to the intake should be a good tip for a student to plan their studies, in case if they would need more time to plan their financials as well. And if the student is going to be relying on education loan, it's always better that they do not wait till they apply for loan and then start their application, because Australia allows them to start with minimum documents, get a conditional offer letter, and then approach a bank with a conditional offer letter that gives more clarity when they are arranging for an education loan. And that will also save a lot of time for students when they are looking into apply for a student visa, and the last minute delays we can avoid. So these are the three tips which I would like to give in to students when they are planning for Australia application, where we usually see a lot of delay coming in. So if they are able to sort all these 3 points at the time of application, they will be well in advance and they can plan their visa in a smoother manner.
Thank you, Pooja. These tips would really help. Thank you all for your participation and great questions. We hope you found this session informative and helpful. To join more such informative webinars, follow us on our social media handles. Visit website www.fesindia.com, and if you have any inquiry, just drop in the inquiry and you will receive the personalized guidance. Thank you once again and have a great evening. See you in the next webinar. Thank you all.